Hey guys, and welcome to another great episode of Grace Under Pressure. I'm your host, Sarah Willis, and today I am joined by Sarah Swiatek, and this is going to be a great conversation. And just two powerhouse Sarahs meeting and discussing jiu-jitsu. So for just to kind of lay the groundwork, tell our listeners how you got into jiu-jitsu and all those sorts of good things.
Yeah, so I always tell people there's like the short story and then there's the long story. For the short story was I just wanted something to know that I could defend myself, some form of self-defense, something that I knew that if I were to be traveling or going anywhere with my family, or there was one instance with my sister, we were traveling somewhere and we were out, I just didn't feel safe, didn't feel like if something were to happen that I'd be able to protect myself. Long story is I was dealing with some personal issues, things that were going on in my life at the time. And I needed an outlet for my aggression that I was dealing with, and just needed something to dump into so I could kind of have an outlet. And so having that outlet that jiu-jitsu has provided for me, I think what I anticipated going in and then what I've actually gained and everything that I've gotten, it was unexpected. I didn't realize all the family and the connections that I was going to make and the friendships that the longevity of that, but also the confidence that I gained from the sport itself. I'm a competitive person, so I didn't think I realized how competitive of a person I am until I got into the sport. And I think about 3 or so months in, I started competing just because I picked it up right away and I just loved the atmosphere. I went and actually watched a couple of tournaments with my teammates and saw them and the aggression and how they were able to just subdue their partners or their opponents in that instant. And something just clicked in my head. I was like, I got to do this. I got to get out there. I want to experience what they're experiencing. But the biggest thing was I just wanted to have that next level of confidence and have an outlet for myself. And it's definitely been that and then some for me, for sure.
Oh, yes. I can attest to that. It's a great outlet. Phenomenal. About to say, and I met you doing competition, so it's hard for me to say, I didn't realize I was that competitive. Meanwhile, when I meet you, it's like going all the way through.
So I think that's the backstory.
This episode is brought to you by Grapple Graphics. When you go to the mat, you might wear a ranked rash guard or a BJJ belt. But what if you could show off your rank off the mat? Grapple Graphics sells ranked decals so you can show the world your hard work, whether on a laptop, water bottle, or on your car. Grapple Graphics has also developed t-shirts as well. Don't leave your rank on the mat. Show the whole world what you have become. Hey there, podcast listeners. Looking for a straightforward, no-nonsense approach to fitness? Well, then check out Cut and Dry Gym, located right in the heart of Flowood, Mississippi. At Cut and Dry, they believe in providing you with the tools and environment you need for real, tangible results. Say goodbye to overwhelming gimmicks and hello to a fitness experience that is as clear-cut as their name. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned athlete, Cut and Dry Gym is ready and able to be your partner in this journey. Come transform with them today and let's make those fitness goals a reality. Visit Cut and Dry Gym, where it's all about pure, powerful progress. Ever found yourself in need of a quick snack or maybe that last-minute essential? Look no further than Sprint Mart. Located conveniently in your neighborhood, Sprint Mart offers a wide variety of products to cater to your every whim and need when you're on the road. From refreshing drinks to mouth-watering snacks and daily travel essentials, they've got you covered. And with their tagline, "Run with the best," you know you're getting top-notch service and quality every time you step in. So next time you're on the go, make a quick stop at Sprint Mart and truly run with the best.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like the backstory for your listeners to how we met. We met at the Summit Grappling Tournament in Mississippi, and I think we were with Macy. We were just talking, and all of a sudden I just struck up a conversation with you. And I was like, "No way, you're Sarah also with an H," which that's just cool in itself. And I was like, "Oh, you're actually a pretty awesome person." And I know that I think in the lineup I was fighting before you, and then you were fighting, or was it? I think it was the other way around. I think I ended up coaching your match because you were alone. So I ended up coaching your match, and then you coached mine. Then I said, you coached all of mine with my sister. And we just kind of hit it off. And that's what I love about jiu-jitsu is just the unsuspecting friendships that get cultivated. And it's like, well, here we are. I live in Colorado, and you met in Mississippi, and you live in
Mississippi. I actually live
in Mississippi. Okay, I just knew you had to travel a long ways to get there.
Yeah. So I'm basically, we're in the north of the state, and I live in the south part of the state.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it was neat to be able to meet under that circumstance, and so it's like, okay, cool. And then like, I got a podcast. I'm like, well, neat. And then literally on my way home from the trip, I downloaded a couple of your episodes. I was like, this is really cool. Like I love your podcast and the format that I provided it. And I think the most recent one that I'd listened to, you had one of your teens from your gym on the podcast, and it's just neat how much it's growing. I think if anything, a lot of people doing the podcast, just like Joe Rogan and everything else, like everyone gets to see a different approach or an aspect to the sport when you hear it talked about, especially just in a casual manner. And so the way we met was just really neat to on your podcast.
So. It really was. And I know I don't really yell that much in my life, like day to day, but I just remember the entire, because it started, I don't know, I think your first match was like at 8:30 or something like that. I can't remember. But then
I was later
there,
for sure.
Yeah. And it was like from 8:30, and then you go all the way into the absolute, and I'm yelling all the way through. So basically I am yelling from 8:30 to midnight. I had no voice. Your voice. I did.
I added it up. It was about 53 minutes of jiu-jitsu in one night, to have 5 matches. And you were there all of them. I was surprised. I knew you were like, I need to get home. I'm like, oh, I totally understand. And then you ended up staying in the next match, and you're like, no, you're going all the way. I'm like, I am going all the way.
Yes, you were. Yes. I can't leave you either. Like, because you were from Colorado, you didn't have anybody. And so,
and that was a cool thing. Like, my sister had come over from Arkansas, but it's not her sport, and she was out of her element. And she was like, I don't know what to coach you. I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, it's fine. Just being there is helpful enough. But I think by that last match, she was with it pure, fully invested. How many opportunities do you get to see your sister in a competition environment going against a Brazilian black belt? Like, that's
that was awesome. So, that was amazing.
15-minute match. So yes, I really appreciate Summit Grappling putting on that tournament. That's my second time with them. Yeah. And I think I heard they're doing another one here in a few months.
That's awesome. For sure.
And they also are prioritizing women, which was neat.
So. That's always great. And sometimes, we know that it's not as big of a sport with females, but it seems like when I watch, the guys, doing their matches, their tournaments, it's a lot more, sometimes it's just brute strength that they'll tap into, because, it's just the acai bowls, right? That's all it is. With females, there is some of that going on too, but it's just so much more technical, it seems, because
I've heard some people agree with that. Like, people are like, it's more entertaining to watch some of the female matches and stuff. It's neat to hear that.
And so my question, because you had so many different fights that evening, how were you able to, I don't know, I guess dig in deep to keep that stamina going? Because it seemed, obviously, I know you got tired, but you were still able to finish, and you probably had the hardest fight at the end. So what was that like?
I think the biggest thing here lately that I've been working on is the mental aspect of it. I mean, of course, jiu-jitsu is the drilling and the training and understanding the techniques and all that, but I feel like a big portion that gets neglected is the mental fortitude of it, not overthinking. I knew, like, I just thought, okay, one match at a time. And of course, like, the ultimate goal is I wanted to get the belt. I wanted to win the purse and all that stuff. And of course, like, you think about that, but then it's like, all right, I gotta tuck that away. I can't be cocky. I've never been that way. That's not my demeanor. My saying that I have is, I don't want to underestimate my opponent, but I don't also want to underestimate myself. So it's like having that balance and that understanding of, like, they can be really good, they can be on their game, but so am I. And so it's just having that approach to it. But I don't know if you had noticed, but in between the matches, like, when I knew that I had moved on, I was like, all right, okay, another one down. And then I've been doing restorative yoga. My gym offers once a week a restorative yoga class, which is really helpful for, like, that meditative moment where you just need to kind of center yourself and calm your mind and just kind of hone in on your thought process and not let your thoughts kind of go crazy, because after you just want to match and, like, maybe your adrenaline's going and everything else, it's like, okay, I need to calm everything back down. I have to reset. I have to approach this next fight like it's my first match, and go into it with that approach. I also I'm affiliate with a company called Sisu Stamina. It's one of my teammates' company that he's put together, and so it's a healthy, natural tablet for energy and sustaining your energy. And I made sure I took one of those before my first match, and then I took it, I think, after my second or third. I think it was my second or third absolute match. So that also helps with mental clarity. And so that was another kind of pivotal thing to my element of preparing for the duration of all my matches, was let alone the Sisu Stamina tablets, but also coming, I guess, center with my thoughts, calming my mind, and then just making sure that my body like on point and rejuvenated for the next fight. And the mental fortitude that is encompassed with that, I think it definitely gets neglected, or maybe people don't talk about it. I don't know if it's just something that people have become used to doing, and they're just like, oh, well, it's just the next fight, or we're gonna go into the next round and brush off the last one and continue on. But I feel like there's a lot more to it than that. I follow a lot of what Joe Rogan kind of talks about, but more so just his approach to the mentality of it, or like Jocko Willink and things. It's just like you have to have the mentality that it's like, good, well, I got this match done, cool, well, now we're moving on to the next one, and just be able to recenter yourself and go after. I think that's definitely what helped me sustain 5 matches, 52 minutes of jiu-jitsu to get the belt and win the championship. So.
And I think that's a good point, and I think it's becoming more commonplace to talk about the mental aspect of jiu-jitsu. It kind of seems in the past, I don't know, maybe the past year, and that might just be because I started doing, the sports psychology stuff, and, when you start working on something, or if you start thinking about a blue car,
seeing it more.
You start seeing it more. So, but I know I've just heard it talked about more, so I don't know if that's, again, I'm not sure what they call that in psychology, but I'm sure if it's that, or it does seem like I'm hearing about it legitimately more from teammates. So, and I think that's a really big thing, and mental health in general is getting talked about more, which is a good thing.
Yes.
So, and I think with jiu-jitsu, it forces you to have to go into those places where you're either going to dig yourself out, or you're just going to start burying yourself, so it's the choice. You got the shovel, which way are you going to go? And
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is like, well, along with the mental part, I feel like breath work is something that's also important. One of my teammates, Noble Givens, he talks about the importance of mindfulness of your breath, and he introduced it to me, the box breathing. And of course, you don't want to be doing this during a round, but maybe like leading up or in between rounds and stuff, you do. I think the Navy SEALs do it as well. It's box breathing. So you take a deep breath for 4 seconds, you hold and sustain that for 4, you exhale for 4, then you hold for 4 before you do that. And that like calms your nerves, it centers your thought process. It just really can put you into like a really honed in meditative state, because you're really focusing on your breath. And I've been trying to implement that more, like when I am doing my competition roles and things. I feel like it's helped that I don't get as much of the adrenaline dump that I used to, and get like the shaky forearms and all that stuff, because I'm not like trying to death grip people, which I would hope by the time you're purple belt you're not death gripping people, but it can happen. The adrenaline can get to you, but I think that's important too, is just understanding like the importance of your breath as well. So that's it. It's like jiu-jitsu isn't just one thing. I think that's why I love it so much. And like, even when eventually I get to my black belt, there's still so much to learn. People think that, oh, you get to black belt, you've made it. It's like, well, you've made it to black belt, yes, but you're still on a whole other journey. Like jiu-jitsu is just, there's so many other avenues to work on, whether it's your mental or your breath work, or how good of a teacher are you? Like, how good of an influence are you within your gym itself? Do you lead by example with the actions and the things that you say, and the influence and presence that you have in your gym? I feel like those are all really important things to kind of master a craft in itself with each of those avenues. I teach the women's class at my gym every Wednesday night, and to see like the impact that I have on those ladies and the confidence, and they are able to walk into a room with their chest a little bit prouder and their head held high, and you can just see the advancement of their skill sets and stuff. And it's really neat, just because I know there aren't as many women who train, let alone compete. But when I get like the moms of some of the kids who are training at our gym, coming in and they're apprehensive and they're like, I'm not sure and I don't want to get hurt, but I want to try this and see what it's all about. And so it's just neat to see the influence and the impact that I'm having at my gym, just with the teaching, but also how I compete and how I prepare for a competition. So that's really something special for sure.
No, I know. And that's my day job, is teaching. And so, being able to see and communicate things that you know to someone and then get it, that's so fulfilling. It really is. I know in teaching jiu-jitsu, it's one of the things where the more you teach, I don't know, to me, it also seems to refine your own technique, because that's the last stage of mastery. If you can teach something to someone else, you've mastered, in theory, that material. And that's another great thing about jiu-jitsu. I'm trying to get some of the girls that I teach at my school to like, hey, you're graduating this year. Maybe you want to know how to, protect yourself, Yeah,
it's like you're going off to college and you want to have the opportunity to not have that fear or that lingering kind of thought of, can I protect myself if something were to happen? God forbid. You don't want that to happen, but it's better to be prepared and to not need it. But if you need it, you have it. I think the saying goes, it's better to be a gardener in a war than a warrior in a garden, or is it the other way around? Sorry, to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yeah,
which
that makes
sense. It's like it's better to have the tools at your disposal and never use them than the opportunity present itself that you have to and you can't.
Right. Yeah, and that's just. And jiu-jitsu is one of those things now, if it's a good gym, I'll preface all that here. If it's a good gym, it doesn't just crank out belts. I grew up doing Taekwondo, kind of being, I don't want to say Mick Dojo, but, being in that belt factory kind of thing. And, 2 years, you get a black belt. 2 years with jiu-jitsu, you get a blue belt. You've got another, 8-something years to go. Yeah. And that just makes all the difference, so that by the time you're in this process, it really is going to test your perseverance, your endurance, mentally, physically, so that by the time you've got that black belt, in theory, you should have so much information at your disposal to teach somebody, and that's, I guess that's why we call them professors, because you've got all this knowledge and you're trying to teach someone. And so that's one of the big benefits I've seen with jiu-jitsu, is that when you get to those upper ranks, if you've stuck it out, a thing or two. And, and it's kind of cool that even if you know a thing or two and you're an upper rank, you may still get caught off guard by that first day white belt. If you underestimate your opponent, it's a bad thing. Yeah. Yep.
And that's the biggest thing, is like you get humbled quickly in jiu-jitsu, no matter who you go against. I mean, I went to an open mat this morning at one of my local Flow grappling, and I think rolled with, he was a white belt, but of course we were no-gi, so it's hard to tell. But he was like, I've been training for a few years. I'm like, cool, awesome. I'm like, not a problem or whatever, but I'm humble enough to tap if I need to. But I was rolling with him. I was like, wow, okay, you are not, okay, you got some skill with you. And I don't want to be that person on an open mat that's just being a jerk or whatever. And so I'll let them work and kind of work my own thing as well. But I'd rather be tapped multiple times and learn in the training room than tap at a tournament and stuff. So it's having the opportunity to be humbled with whoever you go with. That it's this part of the game. And I know a lot of people have trouble with that. And that is something also to overcome with the mental aspect of it, is not feeling bad that you got tapped or got put in some silly position that you didn't assume was going to lead to a tap, but then you ended up tapping. You're like, darn, okay, well, how do I correct that? How do I work on that? That's the cool thing. That's why I like doing open mats as well. You get to go against people who don't maybe know your exact game, like your own teammates and things. So it's really helpful to help evolve your progression with work.
Oh, for sure. And I know you just got back from a trip, and that's one of my favorite things to do when I go on a trip. Okay, where can I find an open mat somewhere that nobody knows me? Yeah. And you can really then see, like, okay, how does it stack up, to people who legit don't know me? So now I'm just curious, just because I got to know, what was Switzerland like? Or was it Switzerland or Sweden? Switzerland, right?
It was Switzerland. Okay. Yeah, it was Switzerland. It was amazing. Just the views and the culture and everything, and we did different tours and things. That was amazing. My goal was to at least go train once if I could find a gym that was nearby. We were in Montreux, Switzerland, so it's I feel like there's more gyms maybe closer to Geneva, which is about an hour away. So I was hopeful that I'd be able to find a gym nearby. Luckily, I found a gym called the Swiss Bushido Academy, and they train mainly they mainly train gi, not no gi. But I reached out to them beforehand, and I was like, I'm just going to be visiting, and I'd love to stop by. And they're like, oh, you'd be most welcome to come, and look forward to seeing you when you do come. So I ended up going Monday, and I was a little nervous to go. I've only trained out of the country one other time in Germany last year, but I went with a friend, and so I was like, not as alone and going and all that stuff. And I had assumed, I was like, okay, well, it's mostly French speaking there. And so I was like, well, hopefully. It seems like everyone I run into is bilingual, and they might start talking to you in French, but then the moment that they hear that they'll switch and start talking to you in English. Like, it's super easy and fluid for them to do that.
Oh, so jealous.
It makes me want to learn very much so the language. But when I went in to introduce myself to the black belt who owns the gym, he does not speak anything except French. And so he pulled over one of his students who was bilingual, and had them translate for me to him and him to me. And basically it was like, you're welcome and thank you for coming. And most of the warm-ups and everything were similar to what we do here. I will say they are some tough people over there, because I'm used to air conditioning, and they have no air conditioning. They have like one little tiny fan in the corner of the room. And so you're not going to, well, you're a key, and it would, I think, 92 degrees there. So it's 92, humid, hot, no air conditioning. And they did more intense of a warm-up than what I'm used to, even at my gym, which we do a pretty good warm-up. But I was like, okay, if I'm going to take anything back from what I learned from them, was like they really do like intense cardio-driven warm-ups, but then also certain of the drills and things I'm sure that most of the other gyms do as well. But I was like, if anything, they're training in no air conditioning and hot gis, which is amazing. But the cool part is when I was there on Monday, I partnered up with this gal, and I think she had been training for about 6 months or so. And she, of course, spoke, she was bilingual. And so I was talking with her, and he would come over, the professor, and he would kind of show her a couple of details. And then, like, that's the amazing thing is jiu-jitsu is a language in itself. You don't speak the language, but you can see what they're showing. And a couple of times he had somebody try to, say what he was saying and translate it for me. And I was like, don't worry about it. It's okay. Like, I'll just observe and watch and learn there. And so I was drilling with her. She was like, well, she's like, you're adding even more details of how to continue on with this. And she's like, you explained this so well. And I was like, well, I'll tell you, like, right off the bat, I apologize in advance if my coach mode's kicking in, because I just kind of took her under my wing like she was another one of my women's students. And she was like, no, this is actually really, really helpful to be able to have somebody who's so experienced as my training partner in addition to the professor walking around and able to help. But it was nice because then she was telling him like how happy she was that I was there and to be able to help with the class. And so he asked me as the first roll, and we were rolling together, and I could tell like he was feeling like wanting to not be like too crazy or whatever. But I also wanted him to know that like I'm a competitor, like don't baby me, because I know they don't want to be, I know when I roll with guys, it's hard to kind of gauge, like, are you one of the gals I have to be more careful with or whatever? And I appreciate that. But at the same time, it's like, I wanted to make a statement that's like, you don't need to baby me. I can handle myself. It's fine. And so then I think he and I kind of had an understanding. So we kind of were turning up the pressure and the fluidity of our roll. And really awesome to roll with him and have that experience. And then he was telling some of the other like students that I should roll with him. And then right after class was over with, they're like, are you going to come back? How long are you staying? Like, we loved having you here. And I'm like, well, I'm actually leaving Friday, but let me see if I can make it Wednesday. And I ended up making it Wednesday, and it was a great class again. So definitely highly recommend that gym. And they were so welcoming to me to show up and train at their gym and have the opportunity to kind of feel part of their gym, part of the family for a short time. And it was one of a once in a lifetime experience to get to have that and get to train with them. So,
oh man, if that's not a travel brochure, I don't know what is.
Exactly. So it was neat. And one of the other black belts who was there, I told him, I was like, I'm preparing for PANS. It's coming up in a couple of weeks. And he was like, okay. He's like, so you train quite often? I was like, I definitely train a lot. And I was like, and I love it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. But he was like, all right, well, let's get a good roll in to help you prepare for that. So it was neat to have that opportunity. Even when I was for a business that extended to a vacation in Switzerland to get to train. And of course, not to expect, but to be pleasantly surprised with my experience. So it was awesome.
Now, that's just so cool that you can go anywhere in the world and you have a family, you have a connection. You know, it's like you said, it's its own language. You know, if we speak that same language, we've got that connection. And so I don't know. I just find that amazing about jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
And that's a special thing that I've talked with my family about it. I'm like, you go and this gym becomes your family. It's another extension of your family. I mean, I'm the youngest of 5, so I already have a big family as it is. But then to go and just know it's like, these training partners become your friends who become your family, and to know that anywhere that I go, I'll have the opportunity, because it's blossomed so much. Like the sport has just evolved and grown. I mean, I know it's been around for a while, but it's just the opportunities of where you can train, or if you're in like a little area, like of all places, Montreux, Switzerland, versus some of the bigger areas in Switzerland, to have a gym 10 minutes from my hotel was awesome. And I don't know if you've ever been out of the country or had the opportunity, but I definitely highly recommend having that experience. Sure.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. I've been out of the country one time when I did study abroad in England for literature and stuff. But that's before I found jiu-jitsu. And so if I had, but back then that's been several moons ago. But it's been at least a decade. And jiu-jitsu wasn't as big as it is now. So I was in Alnwick, England. I think I'm saying that right, but it's where they filmed the first couple of Harry Potters, on the Quidditch grounds and stuff. So it's a very small town, but wonderful people. But there may not have been an opportunity to have trained. But we had a honeymoon redo, my husband and I, in Asheville, and we found a place called Open Source over there. It was great, and it was a very welcoming environment. I loved it. We were there for several days, and just found kind of a home there, and but not had a chance to train out of the country, but I hope to one day. So we'll see.
I would say, like, when I trained last year, it was my first time out of the country. I went to Germany to visit my sister because she was stationed there at Ramstein. And getting to train there was amazing. But I don't know if it was just like, now that I've grown even more in my own confidence, but I was like, I have to train in Switzerland. But now after that, I want to go and just train all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
Get to have that experience.
You should do like my father, his goal before he was 50. Now, they added more national parks before he turned 50, so he didn't hit that goal, but basically very close to doing it. He wanted to go to all of the national parks by the time he was 50. And so he has a big map of the U.S. and he has all these pins. And so that's what you should do. Every country you go to, just check off all the little places you've been to. That might be kind of fun.
That'd be awesome. And see, my thing, I would also try to see if I could do some tournaments and things out of the country, and then also, like, while I'm there, find a gym. So it's kind of getting like 2 birds with 1 stone, or having that opportunity would be like 2 geese with 1 stone, I guess.
There you go. There you go. Now, 2 no-gi sets with 1 stone. Exactly. That's my preference. No, and then behind you, just, nonchalantly got all your gold medals, and so...
My dad called those. So this is my white belt days, blue belt days. Oh, that's handy. That's a good idea, actually. I never realized like how perfectly set up my desk was until at one point, like, I was talking with somebody, like, dang, look at all those medals. I'm like, oh yeah, they are back there.
Don't mind me,
don't mind me.
Yeah.
So having the opportunity to train while I was there was definitely a once in a lifetime experience, and it was awesome to go. And like, I mean, it was a business trip, so we had busy days and everything, but just to know that I carved out the time to make it work. It's no different than when I'm here at home. I work full time. Before May, I was going to school full time and doing jiu-jitsu full time, so I'd like travel. I'd take my computer with me. I'd be working on papers on the airplane, and then I'd go compete. I'd do the competition, and then that night I'd come home, finish working on my papers, fly back home, and that was my life for the last 4 years of going to school. And now it's a transition. I'm doing some continuing education things with my work and working full time and getting to train and travel, and life is great.
Yeah. So I got a question on that. So this is just a practical question. How do you pack with the gi? That's my question. How do you pack your gi? And do you do carry on? Do you do check? What do you do?
So are you talking for international or for tournaments?
For international and I guess tournaments, because my husband now has a travel job and we're trying to figure out, okay, how can we get a gi and this little carry-on bag and enough clothes for a week? So
that was it. So when I went to Germany, I found this gym and I knew that they did strictly no gi. So it's a heck of a lot easier to pack your no gi gear. For this trip, I had my checked bag and then I had a carry-on, and I stuffed in my gi. I folded it up like really, really small, put my belt like inside the roll and like made it like really compact, and just packed the one gi. Of course, going Monday and Wednesday, I ended up just washing it at my hotel to be able to use it the next day. But it's cumbersome because you're trying to figure out like, all right, am I going to be over weight limit if you do the checked bag? And so that's why I just brought it in my carry-on to have that opportunity to know that you'd be able to just have it with you. I would say just do a carry-on bag, and then everything else is put in the checked bag, and whatever free space that you have in the carry-on bag, put all the other things that you need.
Yeah, there you go. Because it's just that's always the hardest part, and that's one other reason I don't want to say only like, but I prefer doing no-gi, is that it's just so much easier to pack your stuff and the no-gi. But what is that like? Because you're going and getting ready for Pan. So I know you said that you didn't realize how much of a competitor you were until you got into jiu-jitsu. So how did you transition from, I don't know if you were doing just starting off in local tournaments, or did you jump way in to the deep end at the start? How did you find your groove in IBJJF it seems like that's your preference?
Yeah, so when I first started, I started June of 2018. And then I think it was maybe it was the end of September, October timeframe. There was a local tournament that I ended up going to. So I didn't jump into the deep end. I really, like my gym they had a lot of competitors, but they weren't trying to push like competing. And that's how my current gym is as well. Like we have a lot of people who are interested in competing, but we wouldn't necessarily consider ourselves like a competition gym, but it's kind of becoming that way because everyone loves to see us all competing and then they want to be involved in it, which is neat because it's just, then you're getting like people who are just coming to it naturally instead of feeling pressured into it, which I know some gyms are that way. So it's nice to have that flexibility. But no, I was lucky enough that in Colorado Springs, there are a lot of local tournaments, whether it be the Grappling Industries or the Nagas. Fight to Win has their local, but then they also have Fight to Win pros that they do here. So up in Denver, not necessarily here in the Springs. So between Denver and Colorado Springs, a lot of options for me to do local tournaments. I did run into a lot of issue with my weight and my belt to be able to find gals to go against. So then I would end up like maybe signing up for my bracket, then signing up for the absolute division because I might only have like one person in my bracket. And if I'm going to take the time to either go and drive up to Denver, which is like an hour and a half away, hour away, I wanted to know that I was going to have the opportunity to fight people. So then I would sign up for the absolutes, and that was kind of nerve-wracking for my parents, especially my mom. She's like, wait, you had the opportunity to go against like higher belts. I'm like, yeah, exactly. She's like, okay, well, you gotta be careful. I'm like, I know. It's definitely, you're taking a risk when you sign up for the absolutes as a newer person. Really, at any stage, it's a risk. But, so I had a lot of opportunity to do local tournaments. I think it was May of the following year, I did my first IBJJF white belt tournament in Denton, Texas. So that was I got my feet wet with IBJJF itself and kind of how their rule set worked and how to travel. That was my first time traveling for the tournament, and I just loved it. So that's when I was like, all right, if I got a budget for these ones that I'm going to be going to and make it work, but then try to do the local ones as my preparation for it. But then by the time I got my blue belt, I was starting to go against a lot of the same people, which like it's not a bad thing because you get to see their progression in the sport as well. But it also does make it hard to advance your game when you're always fighting the same people who know your fighting style. So then that was I was more adamant to go and travel out of state for a tournament to have the opportunity to fight people that I may not fight locally. Then, of course, you have the ADCC, which has become a really big thing. I didn't really get on that train until this year, but I knew about it last year. And so then that's when I did ADCC in Dallas a couple months back. And that was a unique experience. It's like the rule set is very different, especially being solely no-gi, but having the opportunity to, well, I think the bracket, it goes like 3 minutes that you're trying to submit, and then the other 3 minutes that you really still want to submit, but points are live. And then if no points get scored, then you have another, I think, 2 or 3 minutes of overtime, basically. And then if nothing happens, then I think it goes to either a draw or ref's decision. I'm still kind of murky on all that. But it was just a whole nother beast to kind of tackle with this year doing the ADCC.
Yeah.
And I know that the trials are coming up, the East Coast and the West Coast trials and all of that stuff. And I'm going to kind of sidestep this time doing the East Coast trials. This is too hard to get over there, but plan for next year to do the West Coast trials and kind of experience that. But it's been helpful to accelerate my jiu-jitsu game, having the opportunity to have all the tournaments around my area, but then going and traveling, doing pans, gi and no gi. And then I did Worlds, Gi Worlds last year. Now, I think I talked to you about that. That was when I did the really severe weight cut, which then made me realize that I don't ever want a weight cut again. I had been doing little baby cuts here and there, but that was the first time. I think it's like when I set my mind to something, I'll do it. I'll make it happen, like one way or another. But it was just very detrimental to not only like my body, but my mindset. And so I feel like since then, I've really accepted like, okay, where my weight is, I'm usually around like 190, 195. But to be able to just compete at my resting weight and not cut down to, I think it's like 175 for the gi, and I think it's 169 for no gi. And that's just really hard for my body mass and like where I am. Like I'm not fat by any means, but I am in the larger bracket, which is understandable. But I just had made the decision from that point on. I was like, it's not worth it. I can just naturally get down.
Do that over a period of time. Yeah, because that's depending on how quick that weight cut is. That's going to mess you up. Like I used to do bodybuilding, and we could cut weight, but you want to look that shredded, you have no water in your system, you're basically starving, and that's not very conducive to doing well at
and that's it. Like your performance gets affected by that. So I kind of had made like a promise to myself, was like, you're not going to do that severe anymore. Maybe like a 5 pound here or there, but that was, I think it was 10 or 12 pounds in a week. And I had already been the month prior cutting. It just wasn't coming off as fast as I needed it to. So having that experience, I think I needed to, because people had told me like, oh, weight cutting sucks. It's not great for you. And it's like, cool. But until I'm the type of person, it's like really until you do it and experience it yourself, you got to learn it the hard way, I guess. I just needed to have that experience. And so the tournaments, with IBJJF, their bracket is 175 and up. Okay. So that's the super heavyweight class. That's what I'm in. And I just was like, I'm going to own it. And let's just be in that weight class and not I guess, shy away from it. And that's where I'm at. And so a lot of times it's better to come to that conclusion yourself, but sometimes you just have to learn it the hard way. Yeah, shoot. It's kind of like, hey, don't touch the stove. It's hot. Yeah. Right. Ow. Yeah. You're like, oh, okay. Now I know why you're telling me that. And hope that I can learn from that. But I don't know. Do you travel and compete a lot? Or I try to. So a little bit. I go, if it's in New Orleans or Dallas, I can usually make those trips. Usually Texas is a good spot. I've been up to Memphis, but a lot of it's because I'm a school teacher and I have to be back, to be at work at 7:30 in the morning on a Monday and be mentally there, because if you're not there for the kids, I make it sound like they're going to jump you, but they don't jump me.
But yeah, they can sense weakness. So you got to be on your game. But no, I do travel a little bit, and that's something I'm hoping to do eventually is travel a little bit more, because it's always something like, oh, it's always so fun. I do better when I travel for events, because if I'm at home, like I don't know, I get lulled into like, oh, it's okay, everything's fine. But if I travel a little bit, then I get the aggression. The aggression somehow is better when I'm away. But
saw it in Mississippi. You definitely you have the aggression. I don't know what happened with that decision.
No, I'm upset. I'm upset about it. And of course, I told my kids I was competing, and they're like, "What? You didn't win? What is this?" I said, "Don't even start."
Like, but watch the video and see how much I do actually dominate.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, the experience. That's what they say. Like you never. It sounds cliche, but it's like you either win or learn. Like it's opportunity, and it happens on occasion that a ref's decision doesn't go the way you expected it. Same thing. I think it was my second match.
Yeah,
they raised the other gal's hand, and I was like, okay. And like she was like, this is not right. She was like, I will protest this. And I was like, oh, okay. And then they're like, whoa, sorry, made the wrong. And so it's just something like that. It's like, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah,
after they've already kind of made their mind up or moved forward with that decision. Yeah, it happens. And I had a prior coach teammate who had that happen to her. And the same thing. It's just, it blows you away. You're like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, I guess here we are. And that's my thing, is like, never leave it to ref's decision.
Yeah.
It's always been my biggest, try to submit, try to get your points. I mean, sub them. And of course, you're trying to submit. And just try not to ever leave it to ref's decision, because that's happened before.
It sucks. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But if nothing else, I learned counters for when they do that. Okay, now I know what I can do. And so, and you learn so much from, because when you get into purple belt, and I'm sure you've experienced this competing at purple belt versus blue belt, there's so much more there's so much more technical in their roles, and so if you make that one mistake, it's over. You know, the whole match could go a different way, and so you're wanting to make those roles, because you can't look at someone and say, oh, I probably could beat them up, you know, I'm a lot stronger, or I have more athleticism. Like, no, they can sneak up on you so fast. You can't. And sometimes you look at, you know, a competitor, and you think, man, they look like this wet noodle nerd. They're not going to be able to do anything. I think about Mikey Musumeci, Darth Rigatoni. You know, he doesn't look like he's going to be a fierce guy, but you get him in the ring, my God, he messes everybody up. You know, so it's sometimes you just, I don't know. It just seems you can't ever count somebody out.
No, they can be unsuspecting for sure. Yeah, I think that's kind of a perfect example. Like my professor, I'm 5'6". I think he's like 5'2". He might be even shorter than that. I won't insult him, but he's shorter than the average.
They call that short kings, right? Isn't that what they say?
He's tiny but mighty is what I say with him, because he's short, he's smaller, but he can just roll you up like you didn't even know what happened to you until you're tapping, and you're like, oh, what was that? And it's neat, because it's kind of the proof's in the pudding with that. It's like, really, size. I know people, it's going to be the longest like debacle or debate is, does size matter? And yes, in certain instances it does.
Yeah.
In other instances, not really, because I've seen my professor go against like sumo wrestlers, and he's able to wrap them up and do what he needs and gets the tap or whatever. And the same thing, like with my case, some people were like, oh, well, you were larger than your opponent. I'm like, well, not really. I mean, I've had people who might be like, I don't know, like pounds, maybe 15 pounds smaller than me, just differently, whatever. And it's hard to gauge it, to say like what's better or what's not. But I know that that's like the age old thing. It's like, oh, size matters with how the person's going to do their, can they invert? Are they going to be guard? Are they going to be playing top game? Are they going to be the attacker? Or do they have wrestling experience? Because that definitely accelerates your jiu-jitsu game when you've had prior wrestling experience.
Yeah, for sure. No, we got a few wrestlers or former wrestlers in our gym here, and my husband is a former, you know, high school wrestler, and he is planted like a tree. I can't sweep him. I can sweep everybody else. I cannot sweep him. And so and if I try to sweep, I put too much sauce on it, and then he gets up hurt, and then I end up getting hurt, and the next thing you know, we got to go home with each other. So I try not to roll with him, but yeah, it just depends. Sometimes, sometimes guys who are bigger, they're not as flexible. They can't move as much. But we've got a guy, he's a bigger guy. He's got hips as flexible as mine. It's just like, that is not fair. Like, so size in a way, like if they know how to use it, oh yeah, size matters. But, if they don't know how to use it, shoot, yeah. I mean, a small person can absolutely, wreak havoc, that's the wrong word, wreak havoc on a dude that's, 2 or 3 times their size. It's just technique really is an equalizer.
And I think that's the biggest thing. I know you had mentioned like the difference between blue belt and purple belt, and I've heard some people say that the difference between a purple belt and a black belt is just years on the mat. Because like the strength or the mental fortitude or the skill set of everything that you've learned to get to purple belt, it's just time on the mat and maybe some of the more detailed technical aspects of the craft. I think that's kind of an interesting approach to think, because you think, oh, well, you still have brown and then you get your black, but it makes sense because a lot of times, like you said, of course, depending on the gym, if you are getting promoted, like as you should be, you should have a wealth of knowledge by the time you're a purple belt. And that's my thing, is I might understand or know a lot of things, but I'm still learning things left and right. I mean, even when I went to Switzerland at that gym, I learned a new kind of approach to a technique that I already may have understood, but there was a different approach to it, or a key detail that maybe I never really could comprehend until it was shown to me in a different way. And that's the neat thing of like going and training or competing at different gyms and stuff. You're able to see something in a different light that maybe it just wasn't sinking in the way it was taught. And I'm sure for you being a teacher and stuff, you understand like not every student is going to learn the exact same way. So you have to tailor it to each individual student, to how they're going to be able to grasp the information that you're telling them.
Oh, for sure. And so much of it too, I've heard it explained as well, like, yeah, it's years on the mat, but it's also the timing. It's the same technique, but you're quicker on the timing. You're quicker on, chaining things together. It's the same techniques. It's just hours on the mat and being able to use the right technique at the right time. Yep. That's everything, right? And that comes again with years of experience.
Time on the mat and an opportunity to have drill worked with other individuals who've made like hone in on your craft or the specific technique or the submission that you like I love doing Americanas and stuff, and so I really honed in on the different elements of how to really make it be a brutal submission. But you also don't want to get such tunnel vision that you don't see the other submissions. I'd say that was kind of the greatest leap that I had from blue belt to purple belt, was being able, like you said, to chain the submissions, but also not giving up other opportunities to submit because you were centrally focused and had tunnel vision on, I have to get this one sub. This is my go-to. I'm comfortable here. So that's what I'm going to go after. If anything, it was a perfect display at the tournament in Mississippi, because I got, was it a toe hold, a heel hook, a nasty step over the head Kimura. And then the last one was the triangle.
Armbar. Didn't you have an armbar too? Or what, was it armbar or omoplata? Because you broke the girl's arm, so I was trying to remember which one. That was a step over the head Kimura. That was a tree snap, tree limbs there. I found her on Instagram like a couple days later. It seemed like she was fine. So I was like, okay, I don't know how you did that, but you must be really young. I got that them young bones, that young healing factor.
That I'm never in. I don't want to hurt anybody, but competition's a different beast, because there's still that balance of like, I still don't want to hurt anybody, but I will. If I have to. If you're going to be stubborn and not tap, and it's like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's some people just won't tap, and it's like, I got a shift Monday morning, I got to tap. So,
exactly.
I'm not doing this full time, y'all. No. But I mean, it's just being, I think at purple belt especially, and I just, again, watching you compete, it's just recognizing, okay, when do I need to let something go, right? Because that's a struggle I have, is sometimes I'll get that tunnel vision, like, I worked for this, I'm not giving it up. No, okay, give it up. They're turtling, they're rolling you over their back right now, so just let's move on to something else, right?
And that's something that definitely with time, to kind of, I was like, no, I really want this submission. I worked hard to get here, but they're already like slipping out of it or whatever. It's like, okay, now can I go to the next one? What's the next submission that's still in this realm or this position that I'm in? What's the next move that I can get? I think it was the one match that we were doing leg stuff, and I'm getting more comfortable with it. I'm definitely not well versed in the leg attacks yet, but I love toe holds. And the one where I had to sacrifice for a moment my foot to go after hers. And that's something that it's like in the moment you're thinking like, all right, I got to be quick with this. I'm giving her my own foot to go after. And so it's like a moment of sacrifice to get what you were going after. That's another thing that I think takes time to understand and know when to use it and when not to, because you certainly don't want to be like sacrificing a limb for another submission that then they might be able to get you before you get them. And so there's a risk factor, of course, with that. But to be able to lock in the toe hold that I had gotten on her, my foot was exposed for a minute, and it can be nerve-wracking. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'm doing this hopefully methodically and see how it turns out.
Well, it turned out well.
Yeah, it did. It worked in my favor at that instance. Would I do that again? It would definitely have to be a time and circumstance type of thing. Yeah.
And my question would be like, because I know sort of kind of in my division, it's more common to see the crazy leg stuff coming in. Is it common in your weight division at all?
Not as much, no. A lot of it depends on the height of the gals. There's one like person that I'll go against, and she's more comfortable doing like the guard playing and things, and it just depends, and that's it. Like you never know what you're gonna get. Like someone might look like they're a guard player and they end up playing stand up with me pretty well. So it just kind of depends, and that's why I say like never underestimate them, never underestimate yourself, and you're going in with the goal that you are going to win the match. But how you go about that, be open-minded to any and all opportunities that present themselves, and it's definitely, you never know. Like you really never know.
You really don't. And I know there's been some expressions I've heard about, being in a tournament or being in that kind of a fight on the mat, like a fight to win situation, it's worth so many hours training. And I feel like it is. I mean, because it's nothing physically taxes me quite like an actual live fight. Because you're going to learn, this is fun. I can do this in the gym all the time. But when your adrenaline's going and you're, don't want to say your life's on the line, but it is simulated murder, so, and in some senses of the word, your life's on the line, you're going to see what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's maybe why that mental aspect, that mental training is that, if you're not used to that, it's that simulated fight situation. You're going to see, how do I behave when the adrenaline's going, when I feel like someone's trying to hurt me? I don't know. There's just something so valuable about that kind of role and that kind of experience. I don't think you have to compete to level up, and get belts in jiu-jitsu, but I think it's really great to see where you're at and does your jiu-jitsu really work? I don't know.
And that's the benefit of doing local ones, because you're not having to put a lot of the game. You're still kind of getting your feet wet, able to kind of see like how you measure up against people who are within your division. Because of course, like when you train at a gym, there might not be people who are your exact size and belt weight and all that stuff. So, or belt rank. And so when you're able to go to a tournament and have that opportunity and, like you said, simulated murder basically, and the opportunity to kind of put your skills on the line, going against somebody who isn't a teammate, isn't your professor, it's definitely another a way to progress your game overall. Like I said, I don't think you have to compete. I know there's plenty of people who just do this as a hobby and something that they enjoy, and that's great, and that's a awesome thing that you're just training to have the camaraderie and then the skill set to know what jiu-jitsu is and what it can do for your life. But for me, like, I'm a competitor through and through. I love that I can dial it back and coach the women's class that I do and explain, like you said, like having the opportunity to coach, you learn or are able to hone in on some details that maybe you've been too quick or you overlook when you're in a live role with one of your teams. So having the opportunity to break it down or hear questions from your students who are seeing it from a different angle, it definitely has helped me a lot coaching and being in that environment. So yeah, definitely it's helpful for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. I know. And I don't know. I'm right there with you. I've got that competitor itch. I talk to my friends who are about my age, which I'm not old. I know I'm not old.
Yeah,
but,
no, definitely not.
But I'm just like, I dislocated this shoulder doing the bench press, and then this elbow's all messed up. You touch it, and like, because that's the one everyone always submits. But I don't know. I can't stop. I love competing, and just because I don't know, I just have a chance to put myself to the test. Like, okay, what's going to work now? What's not going to work? And and I don't know, just conquer that inner. I don't want to say inner demon because that's a bit strong of a word, but those inner thoughts of doubt of, I couldn't handle myself. I can't do this. Well, no, this is a way for me to prove those voices, wrong, right? It's like, no, you know some things, and now you can actually apply what you've learned and take that back to teach, when you teach class. I don't know. That's the way I kind of try to approach jiu-jitsu and competing. That, and I also just like there's something really satisfying getting the tap. There's just something really satisfying.
I'm sure it's fun when you and your husband train together too. You get a whole other element.
It is. We have to be playing nice with each other, because I tell Ben, I said, look, you stop breathing in your sleep. All I've got to do is just pull that pillow right across. I play the long game. So
I think like the most important thing too is like even like training, like, because I see a lot of couples and stuff who train on the mats. That's a fun element to bring to the table. But I think the most important thing, whether you're a competitor or not, or young or old or whatever, longevity of the sport is what I think is most important. Even like most importantly as a competitor, but even just as an everyday practitioner, I feel like that's another thing that doesn't really get talked about a lot, or are the things that you do outside the gym, supplemental things to help advance your game or just help with the longevity. So something that I have been doing a lot is like making sure I'm lifting weights. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, but just lifting light weights and things to help my body as a supplemental outside of the training room training that I do. Diet and nutrition, I feel like, is something that's really important as well. Like, are you fueling your body the proper way, or how you go? I mean, I saw some people who compete and are like eating a Big Mac before they go. I don't know how they do that.
I don't either.
I would puke. That is definitely not anything that I could do. But I think your nutrition and what you eat and drink, and I've never really been a big drinker anyways, but usually like when I'm competing or leading up to a competition a few weeks before, I'll make sure I'm not drinking anything at all, just because it's not important to me. But I've never had that issue to stop drinking alcohol, so that's not a problem. But I know for some people, like, oh yeah, I just drank last night, I had a beer, and here I want to go compete. I'm like, oof, okay, affects your game or whatever. But then also it's like some people, they need massages and things to help their body out of a sports therapist I go see, and has really been helpful for some of those tight spots, like you said, with your shoulder or your elbow. Or for me, I had an injury back in November. I think I may have mentioned that to you too. It was a dead orchard armbar. And it was hard to come back from that type of injury when you have ligaments and tendons that get tore, and especially your most dominant hand, like my dominant hand. So the approach to that and the chiropractic care and everything else that I've added in as ways to help with the longevity of the sport. I know, like, the caveat is there's good and bad chiropractors. I will just throw that out there.
Sure.
Like, just like there's good and bad doctors. It's just, I know some people are like, oh, I've been burned in the past. I'm like, I get it. But there's good and bad of everything.
Absolutely.
My dad was an amazing chiropractor, and he no longer practices, but trying to find a chiropractor to match his skill set, it's very hard. But I found a gentleman that does a good job for what I need. And there's things and steps that we can take to help with the longevity of the sport. I feel like it needs to be about more resources or things available to people. Mainly just know that there are these alternative and other additional things to add into your jiu-jitsu game that aren't just time on the mat, showing up for classes and things like that, or even the ice plunge. My gym has the opportunity to do that.
Oh, I'm jealous.
So while I was gone, we had an ice barrel. While I was gone, my professor and his wife installed an ice like plunge, like the actual tub itself that circulates the cold. I am so excited to try that tomorrow, and it kind of experience I think he said it's like 37 degrees or 35. I don't know, something crazy. And then of course like sauna is important as well. So I think you were there. You did the cryo chamber. I was skeptical at first. I was like, is it good to do this like before a tournament? He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Cause he said he just had a whole football team come in before we all showed up, and they were getting ready to go, do an actual, a game. And I was like, okay, I was a little hesitant. I was like, all right, let's do it. I think that also helped me that night as well. So it was 3 minutes in the cryo chamber.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And that's something for those who are not aware. I'm not sure what the company was called, but it was at the Summit event. It was in Hernando, Mississippi, and I think it was at the Gatorade Field House, and they had a kind of cryo recovery center, and so they had a great deal where you could get like compression therapy and not cold plunge, but the cryo tanks.
The chamber.
Yeah. And so I did the compression therapy before I went out, and I wish I could take them with me everywhere I compete.
It was super
really made a
convenient
difference
to have it there and get to do it either before or after. And I'm sure some people probably did both. I just did it before. But I was amazed. And he was like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I've only done the cryo, but like once. It was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I feel like the supplement is the cold plunge. But he told me, he was like, it's more concentrated, more condensed of the cold. He was like, it'll like, penetrate your skin a lot better than ice bath. He's like, it's basically an ice bath on steroids. Yeah. So that was super, super neat to have that there at the facility. So I think that also was another thing that helped with my performance competition day.
I did mine after the match when I knew that I was done, and that I was awake for the rest of the drive.
You certainly were, because you were coaching.
I was awake for sure. But man, that makes me so curious just about what can we do at gyms? Can we get those? Could a gym get those resources like yours and like offer that? I don't know if you can see it, but it's a book called Outlive by Peter Attia. Have you heard of him?
I have not.
No. So he talks a lot about, you have a lifespan and you have a health span, and you want to get those two to meet as close as possible. So I have grandparents who are in nursing homes, and they've been in there for a while, but they physically can't do things for themselves. So their health span went way down. But my grandfather is 98. So his lifespan is quite extreme. But health span includes things like being able to walk and feed yourself, clothe yourself, do things for yourself that we all kind of take for granted. And so it's just trying to extend that quality of life. And he talks a lot about, measuring, taking blood tests, those sorts of things. And I don't think we talk about that a lot just in general, just longevity in the sport, but longevity in life. Like, let's redefine what longevity means. And so that's something that I've seen, some relatives having dementia or Alzheimer's, and it's like, oh man, there's things we can do to help mitigate that. And physical exercise is one of the big things. Jiu-jitsu is one of those things, and just taking care of yourself, like you're saying, eating right. A body that's active tends to stay in motion, and if you're in motion, your mental clarity is usually higher. I have two grandmothers. One was very sedentary, and she kind of soaked in her negativity a lot, and her quality of life went down quicker. Whereas I have another grandmother who's very active. She's had a broken hip. She's gone through so much stuff, and she's able to drive. She drove down from Starkville, Mississippi, down to Jackson, Mississippi by herself. So it's just similar ages, but totally different, lifestyles
and approach to how they take care of themselves. I think that's it. My grandfather on my mom's side, he's dealing with very progressive dementia at the moment, and we tried to figure out if there were alternative things, and he was definitely a little bit more sedentary. I mean, in his younger years, he would go hunting and things, but I think after retirement, like his lifestyle just kind of was like, all right, well, we'll go on a walk maybe once a day, which I know is more than most people. Yeah. And it's hard with dementia to kind of pinpoint exactly like what were the things that kind of accelerated it or led to that. But my family definitely was approached more natural medicines and more holistic medicine. And so finding ways and alternatives of things that can help strengthen the brain or strengthen your body. I think we had started giving him MCT oil and some other like healthy oils and things. I think that has helped him. It's hard to gauge it, but I know that, like you said, there's just a lot of different things that we can do if we really take into account like what we're feeding ourselves and mental thing too. I mean, that can take you down real quick if you don't have mental fortitude for a positive attitude. And it's hard, of course. I mean, life is life. There's always going to be ups and downs. There's going to be hardships. There's going to be, like, what is your emotional stability? Because you can have those high points and you can have those low points, but it's how high the highs are and how low the lows are. And it's finding that happy medium, that balance. And a lot of it too is who you surround yourself with. That's something that my parents preached from a young age, was the importance of who you surround yourself with can make or break you striving for your goals or dreams, and knowing that I mean, of course, you're going to do it alone, but not completely alone, because who you have around you is going to influence your thought process and the will or the drive, or the difference between motivation and discipline. I mean, motivation is what will maybe get you started, but determination is what's going to be keeping you going, and the mental fortitude to continue on with whatever it is that you're pursuing, whether it's jiu-jitsu or a job adventure or schooling or anything along those lines, anything with your life. There's a lot of different things that play into it. And just being curious, I think, is most important in figuring out what works best for you and what works maybe for somebody else.
Oh yeah. And I think, jiu-jitsu, I've heard on different podcasts, I think on Joe Rogan's too, that it's going through the difficult thing. We don't like going through difficult things, but it's surprising how much easier the rest of life is when you can get out of someone trying to choke you to death. Oh yeah. If you can conquer that battle, okay, I think I can conquer anything, right?
And that's it. It's like you just had somebody, if you do like the morning class like I do, we have 6 a.m. murder mats and stuff, and it's like you get struggle cuddles that early in the morning. I love it. I think I can handle a dissatisfied customer, someone calling on the phone. You might be having a bad day themselves. Maybe I can help their day be a little bit better and not get so on the defensive, I guess, because you're a little bit more empathy and understanding. It's difficult this early morning. I think I can handle whatever else life tends to throw at you the rest of the day.
We're very similar. I like to do either lifting at 4:30 in the morning, or we do jiu-jitsu at 5 a.m. So, but let's go back real quick. Did you just say the 6 a.m. murder mass, like going to mass at 6 a.m.?
Mats, M-A-T-S. Murder mass.
I don't know. I think you should change it to murder mass. I think that has a ring to it.
Exactly. So it used to be before we had the gym, we were training out of my professor's house in his garage. Okay. And it was at 5 a.m. And so we called it murder mats, because it's through and through like very murderous, let alone to get out of bed, but then to go and simulate murder with your teammates and your professor and all of that. When we got the gym and everything was established there, we decided that 6 a.m. was more reasonable for everybody to be able to show up, but also the coaches to be able to be present and be there, myself included. So we've been able to be it out that I teach Wednesday morning, and a couple of my other teammates teach. We have Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. class. Awesome. But yeah, we call it murder mats, because it was originally established at 5 a.m., but it's still, we have it be a little bit more aggressive. We still will go over a technique or whatever, but we definitely leave a lot more time for positional drilling and then live rolls. So we try to make it be a little bit more intense than maybe what the night classes will be. Okay. But for me, I like the night classes can be just as intense as the morning. Yeah. So it definitely depends how you go into the room and how you're gonna the training partners that you're gonna line up with or whatever. But I usually have like 3 or 4 people specifically in mind that I'm like, all right, if I get rolls in with them tonight, that'll be a good opportunity to get some rolls in. So.
Oh yeah. Well, for sure, if they're coming in that early in the morning, they're dedicated and serious. Oh yeah. So
yes, and you have people who will always be there, like the diehards. Then you have people who kind of ebb and flow and show up, when they can. Which I'm like, well, still kudos to you to come that early in the morning. Some people just doesn't work with their schedule at all to come to the class. to have that offered Monday through Friday has been helpful, and to see their progression is really neat because they can only come to the morning class. So,
yeah. But man, I'm telling you, Sarah, it has been so fantastic talking with you. It really has been. And we've got Boudin, our dog, his birthday's today, so we have a little party for him. So we got to give him his little cupcake and take the mandatory pictures.
That's awesome.
Anything coming up on the horizon? Of course, PANS. Anything else coming up for you that we can be on the lookout?
PANS is the big one. I know that at the gym that I told you I went to Open Mat, they're having a super fight. I think that's October 21st. So I'm planning for that. And then Worlds in December. Those are kind of the three big ones. Whatever happens between then and now, we'll see. But no, I love talking with you, and it's an honor to be on your podcast, and I'm glad that we met and had the opportunity to talk.
Another murderous Sarah. I love it. So
exactly. Yes. Well, you wish your dog a happy birthday, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. And we'll chat soon for sure.
Yes. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.